Hello and welcome back to Patrons Golf. First time since the Open Championship, I believe. Have taken a couple of weeks off. A little bit of an awkward period in the season. Good to get a bit of a break. Kind of that transition period, I guess, from the major season ending to the FedEx Cup Playoffs, which is where we are now. Kind of have a couple of weaker events and some weaker fields. And yeah, to be honest, good to take a little bit of a break. It's been quite a long and taxing season, especially my first year kind of going through and doing all this. So yeah, happy to take a little bit of a break there as we kind of head into the last important stretch of the season. We'll go over the Wyndham Classic from last week. Obviously, like I have mixed feelings about this. Super happy to see Michael Brennan win. Two-time PGA Tour winner now. Someone who I've bet quite a lot this year. I did go through and do the numbers last week just to kind of see where my season was at. Kind of going into, I guess, this last important stretch. I'm obviously going to bet during the playoffs and a little bit probably during the FedEx Cup Fall Series. But look, to be honest, it's probably going to be fairly dialed back after the playoffs here, even probably after the BMW. To be honest, I probably won't get too involved. Yeah, in the last week of the playoffs, but yeah, Michael Brennan, look, a complete cheat code off the tee. Anytime you can gain 5 strokes off approach, 5 off the tee, uh, eh, 8 with the putter, you're gonna win. It's as simple as that. No one was probably beating him this week. Bo Hostler, has to be one of the hardest golfers to watch with all his fidgeting and just yeah, just painful stuff. He comes in second, a massive 10 strokes gain putting, which you know what, like that can happen in any event, really. Like the pretty run-of-the-mill numbers outside of that off the tee and approach. So he was kind of propped up there with a hot flat stick. The third guy's Ben James is someone who I want to talk about as it's one of the players I have bet a little bit since he turned pro. Probably the last month and a bit, I've bet him kind of like Michael Brennan fairly frequently. I didn't do any of my usual, analysis or a video like this for yeah for this tournament. But look, I had two. I did have 2 bets on Ben James, first round leader, and outright, nothing for top finishes. Look, the first round leader bet's probably the worst beat I've had this year. And like I'm not usually someone who gets hung up with it. That's gambling, that's golf. But yeah, bogey's 18, misses a 6 footer for par. He bogeys 16. He 3 putts from 20 feet. It's just it, it it was just gross. It was gross stuff. And look, I think there's a lot of really positive signs for Ben James going into, I guess, the FedEx Cup Fall Series. I'm sure he'll participate in some of those. And even next year, I think he wins next year. Look, the ball striking from him is just absolutely ridiculous. The putting's gross. I think on the Friday, he even missed a 3 footer, a 4 footer, and I think back-to-back holes, both for birdie. And look, to be honest, it probably should have been him challenging Brennan. He ends up shooting a 9 under on the Sunday, which is great. He was in the final pairing on the Saturday, and he was horrible. And I think that's something he'll probably learn from. So yeah, pretty gross stuff. I had a couple of bets on some other guys. They didn't really fire too much. The next best was Nico, but look, he wasn't really ever in contention. Had a really impressive Saturday, but like he was out of it for most of it, to be honest. Tom Kim with the top five, kind of rounding out a really, massive couple of months for him. And yeah, look, happy for Michael Brennan. Unhappy that it's one of the rare events that I don't bet him. But as I said, that's gambling, that's golf. Let's move on to this week. We have the FedEx St. Jude Championship at TPC Southwind. So we come to Memphis, Tennessee for the first of three playoff events. This has obviously got the top 70 players in the FedEx Cup standings here. We are missing Daniel Berger this week, who has pulled out from injury, but there's no one replacing him, like we typically see with any other PGA events. Yeah, so we'll go to the course. TPC Southwind. It's a Ron Pritchard designed course. It's been a regular fixture on the tour since '89. It was the host of a WGC event. Yeah, before becoming the opening event for the FedEx Cup playoffs here. It's at par 70, playing at a little under 7,300 yards, and yeah, unlike some of the easier scoring venues we see during the summer, it's probably a really good genuine test from tee to green. We've got narrow fairways, strategically placed bunkers, trees, water hazards, and it kind of highlights the importance of probably ball striking and accuracy off the tee. Distance is an advantage. It's going to be an advantage on pretty much most courses, but I don't think this is a course where you can probably overpower the layout. I think if we look at some of the last, some of the last uh, winners here, Justin Rose, Hideki, and Lucas Glover, those three don't really jump off the page in terms of, I guess, guys who, are going to overpower the course. The one thing that probably stands out to me is we've got some really long and tough par fours. The ninth, probably the most challenging, will go down to the scoring splits here. As you can see on the front nine, we've got the fifth and the seventh, where players do average over par, and then 12, 14, 17, and 18. Sorry, 14 is a par three. But we've got three par fours on the back there where players average over par, including the 17 and 18. So it's par 70, which means we've only got two par fives. Par four scoring is going to be probably pretty key this week. The there's a you could throw a blanket over the three scores from the last three winners. You have minus 15, minus 16, and minus 17. And look, you're not going to get someone who's going to dog walk this course. But look, you still will get some scoring. The the nature of success here is provide yourself with opportunities and then obviously take the most of those. The field for this week, and actually go through the winning method. So if we look at average strokes per round for the top 10 versus the field here over the last 3 years, we kind of see that putting and approach is where the biggest difference is. Around the greens, it's pretty similar and stock standard, which is a little bit surprising to me given I guess the small nature of the greens. But yeah, it's a approach, putting off the tee, ball striking, putting is going to be the keys here this week. Take a look at the outright market. No surprise, Scotty Scheffler is favorite. I think I did talk about this during the Open Championship, where we saw we saw Rory almost in some cases a little bit closer to Scotty in the outright. And I was wondering look, if Rory has a good week, if Scotty doesn't, do we see a little bit of a shift in that heading into the playoffs? But you can see here, FanDuel $6 for Scotty Scheffler, 14 for Rory McIlroy. I mean, to be honest, Rory hasn't. I don't think Rory's played since the Open, and Scotty may have played once. There's one way to find that out. Yeah, so Rory hasn't played since the Open. He finished his T40s completely out of it. Scotty played at the 3M, finished second. So yeah, look, I think, and obviously had a good week at the Open. So look, it's not surprising to me that the kind of betting markets, I guess, reset there. The next group is probably not going to shock anyone. Xander, Cam Young, Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy Fleetwood obviously coming off winning the FedEx Cup last year. And then some other, I guess Justin Thomas is probably up there as high as he's been for a while. But yeah, his form's been a little bit, I guess, probably patchy's not the way to describe it. But look, I mean, last year he was heading into well, he didn't make the playoffs last year. He needed to hole out at the Wyndham on the last hole. I think he needed a birdie and he almost chipped in and then threw a club up the air and fell on the ground. But look, as you can see there, look, there's a string of kind of top 15, top 20s in the last while. Super consistent, but probably nothing kind of blowing you off the page there outside of the PGA. That I probably won't be looking at him this week. Matt Fitz, Colin Morikawa, Ludwig kind of round out that, I guess, that second tier, and then you've got kind of some of the next tier guys in Cantlay, Siwoo, Hideki, and Victor. Course success for this week. It's a pretty straightforward approach and probably not super different to how anyone else is kind of reading it. I think for me, the most important stats this week: strokes gained approach, tee to green, good drive percentage, proximity from 150 to 200, and par four, birdie or better. Look, you can kind of throw in any par four statistic here. I don't think I've gone birdie or better just purely based on the fact that, like, I kind of want some good par four scorers, and I think that's probably a better one to look at. That's just my opinion, but I don't think you can really go wrong as long as you do have some kind of par four metrics in there. Maybe if you want to play strokes gained for, I guess, the longer par fours, you can't go wrong. But look for the narrow fairways, small greens, water hazards. As I said, you want some ball striking. I'm not throwing putting in there. I don't want that to kind of overvalue uh, anything here. So that's what I'm looking at. First player I have this week. Where is he here? Victor Hovland. Uh, it seems like it's all or nothing with Victor over the last 2 months. He's missed three cuts at majors, which isn't great, but I guess outside of that, win at the Travelers, outright third at the RBC Canadian. I was super bullish about him going into the Open after being in contention in Scotland, but he failed to see the weekend. And look, that honestly just happens with Victor. I don't think you ever get too concerned with it because of how good he is. He's a super volatile player, and look, at this price, and you can get him at 48s right now. I think that's pretty fair. And look, in that third tier of players, that's where I want to get involved. Some key ranks for me, or some key ranks for him in the last 20 rounds. In the field, he's third in approach, ninth in strokes gained tee to green. He's fourth in proximity from 150 to 200 yards, which is an important, I guess, approach bucket. And he's third on birdie or better for par fours. So with the longer par fours, that's typically his stronger area. So I think the par four scoring is going to be a key separator. So happy to get involved with him at this price, knowing there is no cut for him to miss. In saying that, he could very well be completely out of it round one, or he could be three shots clear. Next guy is Tom Kim. We found success with Tom in Scotland, and look, to be honest, I think it's another really good fit for him here at TPC Southwind. Look, he takes forever to hit. He stands over the ball for a month, which is hard to watch, but like, he just hits fairways, and I think that's going to be such an important part to this week. I'm not worried about the distance off the tee that he kind of will give away to some of the better players in this field. All of his rankings heading into this week over the last, 20 rounds, last few months, he's in the top five, top 10. Yeah, he missed the cut at the Open after winning the Scottish, seeing as I bet him for the Scottish, I don't couldn't care less what he did at the Open. He deserved a week off. Look, we saw signs that he was turning things around and he had another top five last week. So at 55s, I'm jumping back in. The last 20 rounds, strokes gained, approach, and tee to green, he ranks first. He's second in good drive percentage, and he's fourth in par four, birdie or better. So that's a really good spot in that kind of third to fourth tier in the betting market, which I don't think he should be in based on his last 2 months of golf. Next guy is someone who, honestly, I just may as well just leave him in because I just seem to be putting him in here every week at this point. It's Alex Fitzpatrick. Uh, the only time I chose Matt Fitzpatrick over Alex, Alex had a top five. So I've essentially stopped doing that. Look, the if anything Alex does, it's ball striking, hitting fairways. His long iron approach stuff is really strong. And the only thing that's probably kept him from, I think, winning on the tour, I guess standalone win post Zurich, has been the putter. As you can see there, the approach is elite, driving accuracy is good, the putting is extremely poor. I think the one thing that really like makes this number kind of stand out to me. So he's hundreds right now at Betfair. I think the one thing that stands out for me is look, the signature events and his form in it has been super. Uh, you know, those are, I guess, on tougher than normal, you know, uh, tracks compared to some of these other PGA Tour events. The fields are stronger, and that's kind of what this is this week, right? It's a tougher track. It's a much better field, and look, this is a great price for him. As you can see there, T7 at the Travelers, T6 at the Memorial, fourth at the Truist, ninth at the Cadillac. Like that's all signature events. That's all tough fields, tough-ish courses. Some of them more so than others. Like I'm absolutely going to get involved here. Like I keep betting him. He will. I'm convinced he'll win. Uh, I guess I'm running out of events at this point. But look, the Zurich will not be his only PGA Tour win. Some key ranks for the last 20 rounds: sixth in approach, 12th tee to green, and fifth in good drive percentage. Right, and that's factoring in the last three events. Where he missed the cut at the Scottish, 71st at the Open, and 61st last week. So he's got some really strong attributes that will suit his game this week. Next one is a guy who is my biggest bet regret. His profile is still, I'll probably have to look into that, but look, it's Jackson Coyven. Uh, I was very vocal about the fact that, his betting price at the John Deere didn't make a ton of sense to me. At the ISCO, probably was too short for me to get involved again. But I understood it a little bit more based on how weak the field was. The 3M, the 3M price I looked at for a long time. You could get around 30s, and I reckon, I've been kicking myself ever since. He obviously wins that, and look, he kind of just sneaks into the 70th spot here with a T29 last week. Uh, but I'm very understanding of the fact that we're talking about a generational talent. His third PGA Tour event as a pro, he's won. He is going to absolutely pile up the wins, and I think, this is the third time I've mentioned it now. Like, I love a lot of these guys in this like third to fourth tier in the outright market. He's 50s as well, and I think like it's a course. That's a good fit for him. Some key ranks: 12th tee to green, sixth in good drive percentage, fifth in proximity from 150 to 200, and eighth in par four birdie or better. So look, I'm just not going to be one of those guys who takes guys around that 10 to $15 mark, which is kind of what he was for the ISCO when he won. Sorry, not when he won, but like when he was that price. I'm just never getting involved there. Um, you'll happily get me involved at this price on him. Last guy is JJ Spawn. I'm probably looking at Spawn here the same way I look at Tom Kim. Hits fairways, super accurate, and just gives you like a real honest contest. His last month hasn't been super, which is probably where we find him here. So he's 61 at DraftKings. I got 75 at Betfair. I I'd probably still bet 61 to be honest. His May and June were, really strong outside of the majors. Didn't make a weekend, but uh, look, there's a lot of good stuff there. T6, T12, T7, and then yeah, obviously from the Scottish onwards, it's been fairly uninspiring. But look, you know what you're going to get. You know what his game is, and this is probably one of the events where I'm happy to take. I don't take too many shots on someone like JJ, but this is probably a week where I am. Ranks first in proximity, 50 to 200, and sixth in par four birdie or better over the last 20 rounds. So, look, despite the fact that the last month has been pretty average, there's still some good stuff in there. So, yeah, look, I know there's probably a little bit of a split between, I guess, fans, or casual fans, or serious fans are kind of a little bit split in terms of do they get excited for the playoffs? I do. I do also welcome I guess the change in format, which we'll see over the coming seasons. But yeah, look, it's a 70 70 player field. It's a strong field, and it's a really good course. So I'm looking forward to it. If you're betting, good luck. And yeah, hopefully one of those five guys wins.